There's no doubt at all, and America had no doubt. As late as 1951, there was a case in the International Court of Justice, the World Court, and the question arose, what was the meaning of genocide? And the American government filed with the court this statement saying one of the most outstanding examples of the crime of genocide is the Turkish massacre of the Armenians. That was what the United States government told the World Court in 1951. Why is President Obama not saying it today? In 1984, the Genocide Convention is so important because it's one of the few international conventions that have been ratified by the United States. President Reagan signed it in 1984, and the Congress and Senate ratified it in 1987. Why now will Britain, at least Britain, has stopped using those threadbare excuses? Why won't Britain and America? We know, because Turkey is neuralgic. Well, they won't tell the truth, but they must tell the truth, because the truth will not be kept. There must be, firstly, an opening of the Turkish government archives. They must have a Freedom of Information Act. They must abolish Section 301 of the Turkish Code, which puts people and a number of journalists in prison for suggesting that it was genocide. That must be repealed. And there must be an opening of the archives so that historians, not just the lickspittle historians from Princeton that they pay, who occupy the Ataturk chair, paid for by the Turkish government. One of the most extraordinary things about researching this is to see these lickspittles who are being paid by the government, who are finding reasons for suggesting it wasn't genocide. Those archives, they're given unique access to the archives. The archives must be open to all historians. There must be an apology, and there must be reparations. There must be reparations. One appropriate form of reparation would be to give the Armenian Patriarchy, the Armenian Church, possession of those hundreds. I think there are over 1,000 churches that were originally Armenian churches throughout Turkey. And we have some hold over Turkey. Turkey very much wants to join the European Union. It's in its economic interest to do so. And it will not, it must not be allowed to join the European Union. Europe has a great history in developing human rights. Europe demands, as membership, a truth-telling. It demands that those who have committed great crimes should recognize, understand, and apologize for them. And I believe that Turkey must be denied the right of membership of Europe until it adopts and performs the most basic principles of European civilization. But ladies and gentlemen, racial hatred, the kind of racial and religious hatred that produced the Armenian genocide, exists today still. The example only a few months ago of the Safarov case. Mr. Safarov, the axe murderer from Azerbaijan, who several years ago, when billeted with a young Armenian from Nagorno-Karabakh, obtained an axe, stole into his room at night, and hit him 16 times on the head, killed him with that axe. It was in Hungary, and he was jailed for 30 years. A few years later, just 2 or 3 years later, when Hungary needed a $3 billion loan, it got it from the Azeris. And what the Azeris got in return was saffron. He came back ostensibly to serve the rest of his sentence in an Azerbaijani prison. He was met at the airport with a hero's welcome. He never got near an Azeri prison. The president congratulated him, gave him a medal, a promotion, and his back pay. He was set free immediately, he was promoted, and he was rewarded for that monstrous axe murder of an Armenian. That shows the world. It had this value, I guess, that it showed the world the depth of hatred that is still out there, not from the Turks, but from the Azerbaijanis. And that little state of Nagorno-Karabakh is surrounded by a ring of hatred, of snipers. I walked the line of control last year, and the bullets come every so often. And they, I think, are the Armenians that are still in danger of racial and religious hatred. They are the Armenians we should think of today and think of how to help in memory of the martyrs of 1915. Because there is a solution. It's one the Karabakhis came up with by themselves back in 1992 after the pogroms in Sumgait and Baku. It's independence, their right of self-determination. Because Nagorno-Karabakh is a mistake of history made by Stalin in 1922 at the instant people often don't realize this historical fact that Ataturk got at Stalin in 1922 to have Nagorno-Karabakh made part of Azerbaijan, not, as it should have been, part of Armenia, because of course its people are Armenians who had suffered as well in the genocide. What happened was that Stepanakert, the capital with 50,000 people, children at schools, people in hospitals, was put under attack for months. They were bombed by the Azeri Air Force. They were shelled from Sushi, which was just above. The shells rained out, and they were targeted, the shells, on schools and on hospitals, and thousands were killed. I interviewed a number of survivors of the siege of Stepanakert. We think, well, the world pictures Guernica, the Picasso picture of this town being bombed and shelled and women and children being killed. That was precisely what happened to Stepanakert in 1992. It was a war crime, and it went on for long enough to be a crime against humanity. Of course, the courageous Karabakhians, with help from the diaspora, there was a famous Californian who came to help the self-defense. It was brilliant. They led a remarkable military achievement to take Shushi with the help of some liberated Russian tanks. And they made a lifeline, what we lawyers call a humanitarian corridor, through Lachin to Goris. And it was on that humanitarian corridor that the fate of Stepanakert, that Stepanakert was saved from starvation. And that, in law, my view, entitles Nagorno-Karabakh, not only to keep it at the time, to keep it as a corridor, but to keep it as a corridor today. It is a humanitarian corridor, and it's their lifeline. Azerbaijan is taking action in international courts to pretend or to try to say that it has to be given back. They are fighting not only with the occasional bullet, not only with creatures like Safarov, they're fighting with legal cases, and those legal cases must be resisted. Lechin is now an essential part of Nagorno-Karabakh, and Nagorno-Karabakh is sufficiently distinctive, sufficiently independent to, under the right of self-determination in international law, to be its own country. The Azeris say, you're just part of Armenia. This is a pretense, but they're as much a part of Armenia as Scotland is a part of England. And what's happening to Scotland? It's having a referendum next year as to whether it wants independence, and it will be given independence. It will become an independent country. It's entitled and it's distinctive, but in the same way. The Karabakhians are different. They've got these unique, wonderful rugs that are not replicated in Armenia. They've got their own very democratic system. They've got their own judges, their own officials that are not beholden to Armenian in any way. They tell jokes about Armenians, and Armenians tell jokes about them, largely to do with mules, I think. But they drink tea where Armenians tend to drink coffee. They drink a foul-tasting mulberry liqueur that Armenians wouldn't drink in a lifetime. But they have forged their own nation against attack and against the greatest repression. Just like East Timor, we gave East Timor its statehood. We gave Kosovo its statehood because they had been under attack from a surrounding country. They're entitled to secede in international law. Nagorno-Karabakh is more of a country than Liechtenstein or San Marino or Andorra, countries made up of a few thousand tax accountants. It's more of a country than Monaco, made up of a few thousand tax exiles. I dare say it's more of a country than the Vatican. But it is, ladies and gentlemen, the right of secession and the right to independence of a people that have developed in their own way and that are subject to persecution. Just as the Palestinians now have their own state, so should Nagorno-Karabakh. But the Nagorno-Karabakh is under threat. I visited a few months ago the airport at Stepanakert. It's a state-of-the-art airport. It is all ready to fly. Why are there no aeroplanes at the airport at Stepanakert? Because the Azeris threatened to shoot them down. This is a monstrous act of terrorism, a threat of terrorist action to shoot down passenger planes. It must be condemned as such. It means that Nagorno-Karabakh can't develop tourism. It takes you 6 hours to drive from Yerevan instead of a 20-minute flight. That's a terrorist threat. And just as we remember the martyrs of 1915, we must remember those who are today at risk of imminent invasion. And I think the United States can give them protection, the protection that comes with statehood. That may be too much to ask of the Obama government, but they, after all, deserve at least a recognition of their autonomy. They are Armenians, relatives involved in the genocide, since when they've carved out for themselves a distinctive and different country that needs the protection of statehood. So it may not be, it may be that the greatest assistance that America can give to the victims, the greatest commemoration that this country can give, is to assist these victims, not just by remembering the victims of the past, but ensuring safety for the potential victims of the future. It's very important that America come to Armenia's aid on this, because the danger is that Armenia will otherwise look to Russia, and Russia's record on human rights is becoming worse and worse, as the Magnitsky case shows, or to Iran. And Iran, of course, is a human rights pariah for the thousands of people who were killed at various times by the present government. They are, I suppose, friends in need, but it must be cautious. It is much better to have the friendship of the United States, and I'm sure that all that you can do to make your government aware of the need for support and the risk that the Karabakians are running today. So, in memory of the martyrs, and to keep their memory alive, let us determine today that their deaths shall have real meaning, that the commemoration shall lead to, eventually, to reparations from Turkey and to statehood for Nagorno-Karabakh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robertson, for that deep and respectful message. Thank you. Before we continue with our distinguished speakers, I would like to welcome once again the choir of the Armenian Society of Los Angeles and their maestro, Mikhail Avedisyan, for a continuation of their musical performance.